We're on.
Okay.
And we're about to take you around Nigeria in 30 minutes, bringing you all the big stories from yesterday right here on Freshly Pressed. My name is Victor Pepple. I've got
I'm
Mr.
Shopper
C,
Martins.
Chauffeur Martins, and we're here together
Yes, we
for
are.
30
And
minutes.
Mr. C is with us for the next 30 minutes. Good morning, Mr. C.
Good morning, guys. Good morning,
Uh,
Lucas.
Listen, so I've actually had the privilege of talking with Mr. C for a while before the show. Lots of good
Some of the
stuff.
stories.
Lots of good stuff. So we'll be discussing quite in depth on the stories, and we'd love your participation. So make sure you send your WhatsApp messages in to 0809 440 981. You can also go up on Twitter where we are at Smooth981FM and use the hashtag FreshlyPress981, and of course take it to YouTube as well. We're up on YouTube. Just find us Smooth981FM Lagos. Join the live stream and leave your comments up on that stream as well.
All right, so let's begin with the Vanguard newspaper. Soludo declares curfew, bans motorcycles, tricycles, shuttle buses from operating on Mondays. Now, the Anambra State governor had declared curfew in the state. The governor made the declaration in a statewide broadcast on Wednesday evening in Oka. He took the decision following reports of wanton killings, kidnappings, and other security issues affecting the states. Is this the solution to the, IPOP sit at home every Monday, and if you disobey, you may, be beaten or perhaps, even get worse if you disobey that order on Mondays? Is this also a reaction to that, Mr. C?
Okay, so Victor, thank you. This is the reaction to the growing insecurity that has been experienced in Anambra over the past few weeks, and especially since Governor Soludo took office in the state. Now, he's held a series of meetings. He's also met the detained leader of the proscribed movement, IPOB. And IPOB has actually rescinded the sit at home order, but there are some unidentified and unknown elements that continue to enforce it. Now, he's probably had countless security meetings, and this curfew, it must be pointed out, is not in the entire state. It's restricted to certain local government areas in the state, and they include Aguata, Ihiala, Ekusigo, Nnewi North, Nnewi South, Ogbaru, Orumba North, and Orumba South. And it's to the effect that commercial motorcycles, commercial tricycles, commercial shuttle buses will not operate between 6 p.m. and 6 a.m. each day. Now, what that clearly shows is that information available to the government suggests that these modes of transportation are being used to perpetrate crimes. And the idea is this curfew will last for 2 weeks in the initial phase. And if within that period there is a noticeable drop in criminal activities, it will probably be lifted. And he's enjoined the leaders of the unions of these operators to ensure that their members fully comply with the curfew order. Moreover, he's empowered the youth in each of the communities in these 7 local government areas to impound any commercial operator that flouts the directive and then hand them over to the police. Now, it must be very frustrating for the governor, seeing as the economy of Anambra State continues to suffer, and this is a man who has a clear-cut plan, a clear-cut vision for the state. Don't forget, they've just built a cargo airport in Anambra, and it's designed to increase the volume of business in that state. With all these wanton killings and criminal activities, it's severely going to be hampered, and we look forward, we watch with patience and anticipation, trusting that he will get this under control and it will serve as a template for other governors in the country.
It's quite interesting. What he came out with. Just even this information that the state government will revoke and acquire any land that's found to be harboring these people, these unknown
Yeah,
gunmen.
so in the southeast, particularly, some of the governors have already taken the firm decision that anywhere property is used as a hideout or as a camp for criminal elements, the structures on that land will be demolished and the land will be taken over by the government. So when people know that they have the risk of losing their properties, they would think twice about openly collaborating with criminal elements.
That's quite a strong deterrent, don't you think?
Yes, it is.
Mm.
Well, still sticking with Anambra.
All right, let's take it into big news. Why I quit PDP presidential primary, says Peter Obi, the former governor of Anambra State, explaining that, and I quote, recent developments within the People's Democratic Party were responsible for his resignation from that party and his withdrawal from its presidential primary that's slated for the end of May, saying our national challenges are deep seated and require that we each make profound sacrifices towards rescuing our country. My commitment to rescuing Nigeria remains firm, even if the route differs. Now, Mr. C, recent developments. Just what might he be alluding to here?
Okay, sure. But so the recent developments he made, I'm pretty certain he's alluding to. One, the PDP is leaning in the direction of a consensus candidate. The second point is the PDP is also leaning in towards giving the ticket to a candidate of northern origin. Now, what I find personally interesting is he calls them recent developments, but we've known for a while that those were the directions in which the PDP was leaning towards. Because let's understand it very simply: the PDP's only goal next year is to win the election. Whichever route is the most direct, is the shortest and clearest, is the route they're going to take, irrespective of whether the candidate in question can actually get the job done. They just want someone who will win the election. And they probably feel that despite Mr. Peter Obi's obvious qualifications and credentials, that he's not the man to win the election for them. Now, it's very sad to hear that he's left the PDP for the Labour Party.
If they confirmed that he's going to the Labour Party, if he said
Because it was so
the
far just
speculation.
speculation.
Well, I read a report last night that seemed to settle it, but let's even say he doesn't go to the Labour Party. Having left the PDP, surely he's not joining the APC. So, whatever party platform he moves to, if he's not abandoning his presidential bid, can that platform deliver the election for him? I sincerely
That's a
doubt that.
question because, of course, whenever people think about who exactly might field the next presidential candidate, it usually comes down to the, usually, let's put it that way, it comes down to these two parties between the PDP and the.
It's for a singular
the
reason.
major political parties.
APC.
It's for a singular reason. They're the two parties with the most spread across the nation. All of these other parties have pockets of concentration. They're not national. So if he's not running on the PDP platform, we can be certain APC is not going to give a ticket to him because he can't just stroll into a party and get the ticket. So what does that say of his bid for 2023?
A lot of young people online are saying, "Oh, it's no longer business as usual. It wouldn't be about the party now. It's about the candidate. Or Peter will be wherever he goes. We're going to go there. It's about him. We'll vote for that party come the next election."
So, Victor, my response to that is yes, it's very nice and beautiful to read comments like that on Twitter and social media. The authors of those tweets, how many of them have PVCs? How many of them are determined to vote next year?
Well,
Okay.
that's a question. Looks like, is it that it's down to clouds as opposed to merits? What are your thoughts?
Maybe we should just check, some of the messages on WhatsApp, then we come back to more stories for you. We begin with a messaging from Yinka Bolu, says, Peter Obi left the PDP, so what? He was never a PDP member from scratch. However, we need to admit that Peter has spoken too much. All this, I don't have two wristwatch or I didn't buy a car for my son, needs to stop. Get the power first and show them pepper later. Politics is a dirty place. If it means to rob in the mall to wrestle for power from these guys, please do.
All right, Nericello says, so glad that Peter Obi left PDP. He used their platform to grow. Okay, then. And Guru from Lagos says, who would effect the curfew? Where you currently do not have a security post, the town is run by IPOB.
That's Ihiala. That's where he's talking about. Yomi from Surulere sends a message in, says that Peter Obi has joined NNPP. Let's call it spade a spade. Well, I'm not sure about that.
So far, we've had NNPP, we've had Labour, we've had APGA, lots of people just naming different parties. So,
Okay, Gakpo from Queen's Drive comes in here, says the PDP was originally founded by the late architect Alex Ekweme before it was hijacked by Obasanjo and the rest in 1999. If they want to promote equity and fairness, zoning should be important in these early days of Nigerian democracy. There are too many big bullies in the PDP, so I really don't blame a responsible fellow like Peter B for backing out of childish and unwarranted drama. The messages keep coming in. He's running on a coalition party. I'm not sure about that until we hear from him. Peter Obi said he's not desperate to be Nigeria's president. We need to always state that if he doesn't win the election, he goes away peacefully and Nigeria loses again. That's Frank from Berger. So aside Peter Obi, I don't understand. He's saying if Peter Obi doesn't win, Nigeria would lose again. Is he the Messiah? Is he the savior? I can't tell
oh,
exactly.
this is an interesting one. Tony from Ikeja saying Peter Obi's departure from the PDP is good news. It's in a very long time. The Nigerian political space now has options come
Mm,
2023.
mm.
If you want a Nigeria that's purpose and peaceful, people driven, well, it looks like you'll have options. If you also want a Nigeria controlled by heartless politicians, you also have an option. Every concerned Nigerian electorate is after the passenger and not the bus, says Tony from Ikeja.
All right, let's take it right back into some stories for you. Our national headlines, real big ones this morning. This
Oh,
one,
mm.
okay,
Sorry. Right before we
okay,
get into that
tweet,
story, let's take this tweet from
okay.
Dan Desire, who says, "I love the measures taken by Soludo on curfew and recertification of all commercial buses and tricycles. We shall defeat them."
All right. Let's look at this one in from the Punch newspaper. Cooking gas demand crashes amid rising prices. Market has grown. Now, the demand for liquefied natural gas (LPG), popularly known as cooking gas, has dropped to a record low across the country. This is according to the Punch newspaper. Market report gathered on Tuesday showed that consumers had lately either reduced consumption or ditched the commodity for cheaper alternatives such as coal and firewood. Mr. C. I mean, we saw the prices keep going up. It kept skyrocketing. People were buying, for instance, a kg for 300, 350, 400. It went up times two, 100% to about 800 naira. And there were a lot of people who complained that they were not able to afford it.
Okay, thank you, Victor. So let's backtrack and get some content in. Nigeria is actually a gas country with
Mm.
pockets of crude oil.
Yes. So we've heard.
No, it's actually the fact.
Yes, yes, yes.
Now,
But we don't feel it, or do we?
we'll get there. So let me explain. So we have proven gas reserves that are the third largest, or no, the ninth largest in the world. Now, 55 to 60% of Nigeria's daily domestic demand has to be imported
Wow.
because the LNG only supplies 40%. Now, the LNG is the joint venture between the Nigerian government and several IOCs that was designed to extract, produce, and export gas to consumers across the globe. Now, what is happening is because we have to import gas, we also have to add on freight, we have to add on import duties, and that takes the price beyond the reach of the average Nigerian. Now, we've seen the effect the Russia-Ukraine crisis has had on international gas prices. We've also seen a steady decline in the purchasing power of the rapidly vanishing middle class of Nigerians. Now, that is why the prices have gone up. Now, the federal government had a policy that the daily demand will be 5 million.
Okay.
Well, right now, 1.2, 1.3
Mm.
million is only being supplied.
Right.
Now, what is the solution? Because we keep on identifying problems. What is the solution? The solution is simple. You need to get in other players into the market that will ramp up domestic production of gas. And for that to happen, you have to give them tax holidays, you have to give them tax breaks, you have to give them waivers on import duties for equipment that has to be brought in. Now, if this government is actually serious and coordinated, this is something that can be achieved. Now, independent marketers, independent bodies that are importing gas have to deal with export duties, have to deal with import duties, which are quite prohibitive. Why can't the federal government sit down with its customs service, which is one of its arms, and work out some sort of incentive for that sector? If they can bring in the gas at a cheaper rate, if you can grant them access to forex at the official rate, then it wouldn't be a problem. And this goes back to the nonsense of having several values for foreign exchange. Why is it impossible? Or why are they making it look impossible for us to have a single rate for foreign exchange in this country? Why do we have a parallel market? Why do we have an official rate? And even within the official rate, there's another rate. Why do we have all these disparate and discoordinated rates? Collapse everything into one rate. So you know wherever you are going, that is the single rate that you're taking. And that is what also discourages investors from coming in because
But Mr. C, don't you think that can only happen when we have availability of, the dollar?
no, no. So you see, there are various sources of dollar supply. One is from your exports.
Mm-hmm.
One is from diaspora remittances.
Mm-hmm.
Another is from foreign direct investment.
Investments, yes.
Now, you approach an investor, tell him bring in $1 million for the purposes of this conversation, but we're going to change it for you at 410. And then he's looking at you and he's like, you have to be joking. When I can go to your black market and I can get it for 612. The difference between 612 million and 410 million is at least 200 million. No investor would want to go to the official rate. It makes little to no sense.
All right.
Okay. Let's take a look at the next story, which comes in from the Guardian newspaper. Lawyer sues federal government in 12 northern states for sharing in VAT realized from the sale of alcohol. Now, this is human rights lawyer Chief Malcolm Omihobo, who has sued the federal government, the Attorney General of the Federation, Lagos State government, and its Attorney General, and 12 other northern states and their Attorney Generals at the Federal High Court in Lagos. Now, he's asking the court to declare it illegal and unconstitutional for the first defendant to allocate VAT revenue realized from the consumption of alcohol in other states to the 12 defendants who prohibit the consumption and destroy alcohol in their respective states for religious reasons and or in the enforcement of the Sharia criminal law. So, Mr. C, there's a lot of legalese in this, so I'd love for you to break it down for us. But also, is he asking or does he have a pertinent suit?
Okay, sure, Pat. So let's start with your last question. The issues raised in the suit are pertinent. They're valid and they require answers. However, I'm almost certain that this suit will be struck out
Why?
because he lacks local standard. So what that means, he lacks the personal right to institute the action because the reliefs he's seeking, none of them inure to him personally as the claimant. Now, let's not forget there's already an extant suit that is currently at the Court of Appeal, if I'm not mistaken, and that was a suit instituted by Rivers State, where some of the other states joined, where they're seeking an order, where they got an order of court
Mm-hmm.
directing them to collect VAT.
Mm-hmm.
Now, we need to track back for the benefit of listeners who are wondering what exactly is going on. Now, value added tax is a tax that was imposed on goods and services. So
Right.
at the point of purchase, at the point of the supply of those services, the end consumer is charged 7.5%, which is the current
Current
rate.
rate, yes.
And under the current arrangement, it goes to the federal government. Now, I'm going to share some facts with us. In 2020, VAT became the fastest growing tax revenue, displacing personal property tax.
Mm-hmm.
and company income tax. Personal property tax got 1.52 trillion in 2020.
Mm-hmm.
Company income tax 1.41 trillion. VAT got 1.53 trillion. Now, it must also be remembered there are seven taxes that are collected. Three go to the federal government, four go to the state. Now, the three taxes that are collected by the state government are personal income tax, property tax, and stamp duties. The ones that go to the federal government are import and excise duties, companies income tax, petroleum profits tax, and VAT. Now, the argument has always been this. Take Lagos State. Lagos State arguably generates the largest portion of VAT in the country, hands down.
Mm-hmm.
It's been reputed to be anywhere between 40 to 55% of the total figure.
Okay.
Now, contrast that with a state, say up country, that does little or no VAT. But when the pot is shared centrally, you will find that Lagos State probably gets 10 to 15% of the final sum. And then you now have states. So alcohol sales, cigarette sales form part of the proceeds of this VAT pot.
Mm-hmm.
You then have states in the north who say that according to their religion, those products are haram. That's fantastic. So they destroy those products in their states.
Mm-hmm.
But when those products are sold in other states,
The proceeds from the products.
the
sold
proceeds are put in the central pot. They're
And they
happy
take
to
from
collect it. So we need to make some sense.
Hence why people have been
So
asking
what can be done?
questions. Now the question is though, or one question that I want to ask is: you talked about Lagos State and generation versus allocation. Is it supposed to be? Is this sharing formula? It's not based on merit, though.
No,
is
so
it?
no, it's not. And what is this sharing formula? The central VAT pot, 15% goes to the federal government, 50% to state governments, and 35% to local governments. Now, the first question is 15% to the federal government, that does what precisely? That's the first question.
Is at the center.
No, but
Then
goods and services are supplied in each state, right? So if after you've taken the 36 states and the FCT, what exactly are you giving the federal government and what is it for? On what basis did they earn that sum? Then 35% to local governments. The local governments are just literally non-existent. So it's a discussion that needs to be held by the politicians, and it's part of this restructuring, this call for restructuring Nigeria. And a lot of equity has to be brought into the distribution of the VAT revenues. You cannot longer continue to hold the current system, which is not fair and makes nonsense of the efforts of states which are determined to improve the business environment within the states. So take states like Yobe, Borno, that are constantly ravaged by insurgency and terror, or do next to nothing. There are states like Lagos that are continually investing in the infrastructure in creating a conducive climate. We then have to share a huge part of what it generates with states like that.
Well,
there is no incentive
So-
for those other states to grow.
you know, the River State government had instituted this case, and I think they got legal action for it. But I mean, the northern governors had come together and said, no, we can't work, and then they went to court again.
So, final note, just very quickly, it will be a problem for a lot of states to collect this VAT because they don't have the structures in place. And they will then have to engage consultants. And when that happens, there will be more leakages. And guess what? Goods and services will become more expensive in those states because after engaging the consultant, the revenue received is much smaller.
So it's safe to leave it where it is.
It's not safe to leave it where it is, but they need to grow.
Okay, quickly, let's just touch on this story perhaps in 1 minute before we jump into the WhatsApp messages and we'll wrap up the conversation maybe. From the Punch newspaper, family cries out as EFCC fails to interrogate Okorocha 24 hours after, the former Imo State governor and APC presidential aspirant Rochas Okorocha has accused the EFCC of failing to interrogate him 24 hours after his arrest. His daughter was, speaking to the press yesterday, and that's what her complaints were about.
So that incident on Tuesday, I believe, was just ridiculous from all the parties concerned. Now, The EFCC's official position is that they've been trying to get him to attend court so that he can be arraigned on charges, on criminal charges. On two previous court dates, he was absent in court, and the presiding judge did say that if on the next adjourned date they were unable to produce him in court, he would track out the matter. Now, Rogers is a serving senator, right?
Hmm.
He's not accused of killing anyone. What he's accused of are financial crimes. What happened to issuing him an invitation? Because he said no invitation was issued and there was no warrant. Now, Nigerians all saw the disturbing images of men breaking through the ceiling of a house to apprehend an individual, Rogers in this case. If the EFCC could do that to a serving senator, what will they do to the ordinary man on the street? But more importantly, Rogers, as a serving senator, why did you not present yourself at the EFCC office? Especially given the fact that you continue to proclaim your innocence given every opportunity. The proper thing for the education of our listeners is if you issue an invitation or summons to a member of the National Assembly and the individual declines the summons or an invitation, you're supposed to hand over a letter to the clerk of the National Assembly. Now, what that does is once the clerk receives it, he then tells the member that you cannot attend proceedings. He will bring it to the attention of the presiding officer of the chamber, upper or lower, and the legislature will be told clearly you cannot attend proceedings until you honor the summons. Now, because he's a serving senator, they're not going to dump him in prison. It will go there, answer questions, they take you to court, you plead not guilty, probably spend a night or two in a correctional center, your bail is perfected, and life continues. Sadly, this is Nigeria.
All right, Mr. C. Well said. Because of time, let's just run through with some of the messages that have come in.
All right, Chika coming in from Amuo Dolphin saying Peter Obi dumping the PDP is a welcome development for the Nigerian political space. From the revelation of Dr. Okukwe on a morning monitor program last night, an average delegate is demanding $20,000
Ooh.
by 4,000 delegates multiplied by 600 naira is 48 billion naira. The question is, if an election is all about service, why pay the budget of a state just to be the flag bearer of a political party? Peter Obi made it clear he will not play the transactional or bureau de change style of PDP politics. He unseated the almighty PDP with APGA that was unknown in Anambra in 2003. PDP and APC do not have any structure. They only have money to throw to their voters.
All right, Uche from Isola says Peter B has done what he should have done a long time ago. He's a brand of his own. He should partner with the youths.
All right, and Onaivi Bamidele says, Mr. C, can you stay in one lane? One day you don't want the government to subsidize items, but today you want levies to be removed from imported gas. Then you want market forces to dictate the price of the naira. Will all these still not affect the price of gas? How will these measures reduce the gas price, which is the bone of contention? Well,
All right.
questions.
Well, Fabian comes in from where he says we have and will continue to have a parallel rate as long as people continue to benefit from it. It speaks of hypocrisy that states that ban alcohol get part of the VAT from its sales. States affected should sue. We've done that already.
Okay, Fabian. And regarding VAT, Tajuddin from Alimosha says the practice of the northern states with regards to VAT is a form of hypocrisy. And Yinka Bolu, let's take this one. Final message says, strange how the same daughter didn't explain why her father didn't open the door when the EFCC knocked. It goes on to say, Mr. C, current invitations were issued, or was he not aware that he had a pending court case? Please, he got what he deserved, says Yinka Bolu.
Oh, please, let's just squeeze in this one he kept sending.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah, Mr. C, you're spot on. I can't believe that foreign exchange disparity is even a conversation point. It should never exist. What the government doesn't realize is that the value of a currency is impacted by both quantitative and qualitative factors. Having a parallel market doesn't allow for proper recognition of naira demand and inadvertently impacts its valuation. Besides, for a country prone to fraud and abuse, Forex parity should be restored ASAP. That's B from Lekki. And that brings us to the end of Freshly Pressed for today. Thank you very much, Mr. C. You can catch him on Twitter at Monsieur C with a triple E. I'm Victor Pepple.
And I'm Shukwe Martins. Coming up, 8:15. It will be time for entertainment. It's at the Grapevine.